What's up? We got The Flash, Season 2, Episode 15, King Shark. So this episode starts off where Caitlin is just in shock, saying, no, this cannot be happening again, because... And Barry's like, OMG, we saw Jay die right in front of us. And he's like, open the breach. And he's like, no, we can't. And he's like, no, we can't. And he's like, open again. He's like, Alan, all of the breaches are closed. And she's like, and Jesse's like, that means we're stuck here? And he's like, yeah. So yeah. So then we see, Cisco saying about how, Caitlin wouldn't go home, so he waited till she fell asleep. And he's like, yeah, Cisco, you cannot tell Caitlin about Killer Frost. And he's like, why not? And he's like, because we can't have their lives be connected to the lives on Earth too, which means you can't tell Joe and Wally either. And yeah, so then Joe or Iris, not Wally, Joe and Iris either. So, because Wally wasn't on Earth 2, or even in... We don't even know Wally has an Earth 2 doppelganger. We didn't even see him. So, yeah, so then we see... So, Barry's monologues about... So, yeah, so then we see Barry monologuing about how they kept Earth 2 a secret, went on like everything was normal. We see Joe and we see Harry and Jesse move into some part of Star Labs that we've never seen before, with a room, with a bed, or they moved somewhere. I had no idea. And Barry's like, we were just waiting for another metahuman to attack, and we wouldn't have to wait long. So then we see at Argus, where we see after Bruce. Then we see John. We see Diggle and Lyla talking about... Yeah, Diggle and Lyla are in this episode, and I love them. And they're talking about how this actually marks the first appearance of Lila's title as being the director of Argus since the death of Amanda Waller in episode 11 of season 4 of Arrow. So yeah, this is the first time that we got that confirmation. So yeah, so then we see King Shark, and they learn that Bruce is actually King Shark. Yeah, Barry, so we see at the West house, or the West Allen house, since Barry does live there. At the West house, we see Barry, Joe, Wally, and Iris playing a game of stacking. And Barry's not into it, and that means Wally wins. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, I can't talk about it. And he's like, Barry's been weird ever since he got back from Earth 2. And he's like, has he talked about you about it? And he's like, nah. So, yeah, so Cisco's like, hey, maybe you should go home, Caitlin. She's like, I'm fine. And she's like, she said I'm fine. And he said, Caitlin was acting cold. And Barry's like, really, Cisco? You think she's starting her transformation to Killer Frost? And he's like, well, she's acting exactly like how she was over there. So, yeah. So then John and Lyla show up, and they're like, and they relate team about what happened with King Shark, and they're like, King Shark was dead. Patty tried to fight him. And then Harry shot him with that gun, and he's like, yeah, that's what Argus wanted, Amanda Waller wanted you to believe. They were trying to turn King Shark into a weapon. Amanda Waller was trying to turn King Shark into a weapon. And yeah. So he's like, hey, did you have a King Shark on your Earth? Yeah. Did you have a King Shark here? And he's like, that's our King Shark, dude. He was a marine biologist until he was like a marine biologist until sorry, I keep losing track of my mind every time I think of what the scenes happen in the episode. So he was a marine biologist until what happened is that is that the particle accelerator turned him into a gigantic shark, half shark, and Zoom put him under his control, and his biology is telling him to do one thing, and that's kill Barry. And Barry's like, let him come. We closed all the breaches. We don't have Zoom to worry about anymore. Let's take on the final minute of Earth 2. Yeah. So yeah. So let me see the team, and let me see, and they're dealing. So yeah. So Barry's like, so Joe's like, hey, Wally wants you to help him figure out on a project. And help him on a project, and he's like, yeah, sure. So they go, and he's like, he wants to help them build an engine, and he's like, Barry starts, but Wally's like, hey, I don't need your help. And he's like, Wally, do you got a problem with him or something? And he's like, hold up, your picture is in every part of this room. Yeah, but that's when King Shark attacks, and Barry speeds off to face King Shark. And he's like, Zoom wants you dead. And he's like, blah, blah, I know. But there's no way you're but the Zoom's gone. The breaches are gone. That means you're stuck here, King Shark. And Barry defeats him, but he's like, hey, here's what's going on. So he's like, wow, a king shark, Jaws comes crashing down like a half human, half shark, and Barry comes in and says, "What up?" And he's like, "Where?" And he's like, where were you?" And he's like, after everything they told me, I didn't think you were ever a coward. And he's like, and Joe's like, that's enough, Wally. And he's like, yeah, I gotta go. So Barry's like, hey guys, stop telling Wally all the things about him. The things aren't true. Tell him the real stuff. That he's not perfect. And he's like, what's going on? You've been off ever since you got back from Earth 2. So he's like, Harry's gonna destroy him for telling him this. But he reveals that yeah, in Earth 2, Nerdy Barry knows Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Lantern, and Superman. I forgot to mention that when I reviewed that episode, but now I am, and it's really great that he does. I don't know how he knows the Justice League. He's a nerdy guy who doesn't have any superpowers. How is he able to befriend Justice League? Or maybe Earth 2 Iris befriend the Justice League. Or maybe they're not even the Justice League on Earth 2. Who knows? That would have been cool if we got to see the Justice League on Earth 2. But what Earth 2 Justice League looked like. But anyway, back to the scene. He explains everything about their past life, about their lives, about how Iris is a cop. And she's like, I told you. And he's like, don't get ideas. He's like, what about me? He's like, you were a jazz singer. You blamed him, and you didn't really like him that much. You blamed him for Iris becoming a cop, trying to fuel her selfish husband's career. And she's like, we're married? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, on Earth 2, the villain Zoom's people working on Zoom showed up. He didn't give the names for some reason. He could just said Earth 2 Ronnie and Earth 2 Caitlin showed up, and Joe got caught in the crossfire, and Joe died. And Barry blamed himself. Joe's like, it's not your fault. And he's like, yeah, it is. Jay told him not to get sucked in, but he did it anyways. And because of him, Earth 2 Joe West is dead. But yeah, but back to the mission. They decided to go attack King Shark. They decided to go attack King Shark, and they lure King Shark as the bait. They lure King Shark as the bait with a really cool effect, but they capture him, and he's like turning King Shark into a weapon. Died with Amanda Waller, but now Lyla will try to do something to help King Shark. So Caitlin decides to prank Cisco by pretending to be Killer Frost, and it was real, and we knew she was joking, and she's like, yeah, and she's like, yeah, and she's like, that's what you get, and yeah, so then. So then at the end of the episode, we see Zoom reveal his. We see Zoom drop, or we see Earth. We see Zoom drop Jay's body to reveal that Zoom is really the real Jay. Dun dun. Zoom is the real Jay, and I'm really shocked about this. And also, does that mean that the Jay that we've been seeing the entire time is a time remnant? Because so the time version of Jay died, and the real Jay picked up his body. I'm guessing. But this episode's still great. It was cool seeing King Shark. Joe does reveal to Wally that Barry isn't perfect, and that Barry lost his mom when he was 11 because mom was murdered, and he's been protecting him ever since then. That doesn't mean that he values Barry over Wally. It's just that, yeah. And that was still a pretty good episode. I really enjoyed it. But we are going on to one of the worst episodes of Arrow because of you know who. Felicity Smoke. But anyway, that was it for this video, and I'll see you next time for more of The Flash. Zoom, zoom.